Okay, so I kind of got ahead of myself again. I'm so excited about getting this motor put back together. I forgot to film the first couple things I did to it. So I'm just going to backtrack back through it here and kind of explain to you what I did. One of the things you have to do is you have to mount the oil pump on here, and you have to mount this screen on here, the pickup screen, and you have to adjust it to the right depth of your pan. And so what I did first is you have to drive it into the oil pump housing because it's a press fit in there. So I put a wrench over that just fit it, and then hit that wrench and drove it down in there, because you can't hit on this, you'll crush it. So, and then the next thing you do is you just bolt it on here. I just snugged it down. I didn't torque it at that time because I knew I was going to take it back off, because once you get this position, you have to tack weld it so it doesn't move, come out on you, because if you don't do that, there's a chance that could move or vibrate and eventually fall out. I mean, they fit pretty tight in there, but they always recommend tack weld them in place, or put a little bit of brass there, braze them in. The other thing I had to do is, it didn't come with the oil filter adapter, so I had to unbolt this piece out of the old motor and then bolt it back in. I put blue Loctite on the bolts and torqued them down to the proper spec. And sometimes these will have a gasket under, sometimes they don't. Mine didn't have a gasket, so that's why I put it back in. Same way between the oil pump and this bearing cap. Sometimes there'll be a gasket there, sometimes there isn't. Mine did not have a gasket, so that's why I put it back. So anyway, I'll show you how I set the height on my oil pickup tube here. Now I'm going with this one-piece Felpro oil pan gasket, so it's thicker than a normal gasket. So you got to take that into consideration when you're setting your height for your oil pump pickup. So rather than trying to put that gasket on there and the pan and everything, I'm just going to put the pan on there down against this surface. And then what I do is, everybody does this a little bit differently. I've seen guys use modeling clay, stuff like that. I'm just going to use a piece of aluminum foil and just lightly crunch it so it can compress when you put that pan on there, because you need something that'll compress down and stay to that shape when you pull the pan off, so you can measure the thickness of this. So what I do is I just stick it on there like that and just put a piece of masking tape around it to kind of hold it in place. Like that. And the pan goes like that. You just set it down in place and then push it down until it's all the way down on the block. Okay. And then take it back off. So you can see how it's matched this down. So what I need to do is peel it off of there. And I want to measure the thinnest part here. You can see where it mashed it in right here. So that's the thinnest part. So right there, I'm just about 3/8 of an inch. Okay, so if you take that 3/8 plus my gasket thickness, it'll give me about a 1/2 an inch from the bottom of the pan to this surface. So they say you want this to be 3/8 to 1/2 inch from the bottom of your pan, so I'm pretty good right there. So I've already tacked that in place and everything, so it should be good to go. I can go ahead and mount the pan on here, and the bottom half of the engine will be done then as far as what I need to do to it. The other thing I did, and I kind of messed up on not videotaping it, I got carried away yesterday. I wasn't planning on working on the engine yesterday, and I came out and just started cleaning parts and stuff a little bit. Next thing I know, I'd already put the cam in, the timing chain and gears, and this cover on. So unfortunately I can't show you putting the cam in, but it's pretty simple. It just slides in. You put, what I use is, you want to use assembly lube. This stuff is like super sticky and slick, and it sticks really good to surfaces. So you want to put that in there when you're assembling anything on an engine like this, like putting the rods in, any of the bearings, any of that stuff. You want to make sure you use the proper lubricants, because if you don't, the first time you fire it up, you could spin a bearing or something. The next very important thing to do before you ever fire it up is to pre-lube the engine. And I'll show you how to do that when I get to that point. But basically, once you get to the point where you can put oil in the engine, then there's a tool that goes down in place of the distributor and spins the oil pump. And you spin it, they say spin it for 5 minutes, just so you can see oil coming out on all the push rods, the rock arms, and that kind of stuff. Then you know you've got plenty of oil up into the engine. What I'm probably going to do, because of the fact I'm probably going to do my engine a little bit different as far as pre-lubing it, because today is January 29th, and on February the 9th I have to go in and get a complete shoulder replacement on my right shoulder, and I'm going to be pretty much down for 6 weeks, not be able to do much of anything, and then up to another 6 weeks recovering to where the point I can actually come back out and tackle this car again. So what I'll probably do is, once I get it all together, I'll pre-lube it while it's on the stand, and then once I get it in the car, before I fire it up, I'll pre-lube it again. That way, you know, as oil drains down over time, I'll just make sure I got plenty of oil in all the bearings and everything before I fire it up. But that's my plan. So anyway, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bolt the pan on. I ordered new pan bolts, and they should be in sometime today through FedEx. Ordered them through Summit. And then once I get the pan bolted on, I can go ahead and wipe down the whole outside of the engine with acetone, clean it really good. I've already took lint-free rags and wiped all the excess oil off, but I'll go back over it now with acetone to make sure I get all the oil off, and then I'm going to paint the engine. And then once it gets the engine painted, then I can put the heads on, put the intake on, and get it ready to put back in the car. So my next step, like I say, will be put the bolts in here. Okay, so my stuff came in from Summit. I ordered some break-in oil, and then also some ARP oil pan bolts. These are for the one-piece rubber gasket, so they have to be just a little bit longer to make up for the thickness of that gasket, and that's the part number there, 134-1801. And they make different ones. This part number is because it's got the 12-point head on it. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put the pan on. And I'm probably going to get a lot of static about this, but these one-piece gaskets from Felpro, they say do not put any silicone at all anywhere on the gasket except the each end where they fit against the like the timing chain cover, and then down here on this rear main seal, they're a little bit offset there, so you got to put a little bit of silicone there so it seals up good. They say you can't put silicone on the rest of it because when you go to tighten it down, the silicone will mash against the gasket and cause it to crack and split and spread out. Now, I watched a guy on YouTube the other day, and I don't remember his name, but he's been rebuilding engines for 30 years. He said he actually called and talked to Felpro about that. And again, this way I'm doing mine, I'm telling you guys, follow the instructions. Don't do it the way I'm doing it. I'm just telling you the way I'm going to do it because I don't want to take a chance of this thing leaking. But this is what the guy said. And again, don't take my word for it. Don't take his word for it. Do it the way the manufacturer tells you how to do it. But they told him the reason they say don't put any silicone on there is because most people don't understand, and so they put a whole gob of silicone on there, way too much silicone, and it does cause issues with the gasket. He says, as long as you run just a small, like an 1/8 inch bead, just 1/8 inch bead down there, it won't hurt a thing. You still want to be careful torquing it down. You don't want to, you know, run it all the way down. These 1/4 inch bolts, it says goes to 96 inch pounds. The bolts on each end, the 5/16 bolts, go to 18 foot-pounds, okay? Again, you don't want to run that right down to 18 foot-pounds. You want to sneak up on it. Just kind of go easy, work your way around, go easy, and work it up to the full torque spec. You don't want to run them all the way to the full torque on the initial tightening. And that way you're slowly pushing down easy, nice and easy. It's working in, and it should be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and put my bead of silicone on here, and then we'll get the gasket set in place, and I'll put a bead of silicone on top of that. So again, don't try this at home. I've got the bolts all ready. The little washers that go underneath the heads of the bolts, they've got a little chamfer in them. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me pick that up. See how it's got a chamfer in the bore? So that goes down, that chamfer goes down against the head of the bolt, so the radius on the bolt isn't cut into by the washer. And then I put a little bit of assembly lube on the washers so that I get a good torque reading when I put them down in there. The other thing I did, as you can probably see better on the bigger ones here, I put just a little bit of blue Loctite on the threads. So let me get this camera set back up, and we'll get the pan over here and get it set in place, start putting the bolts in it. Now I took and cleaned off the mounting surfaces on this pan with some acetone, get all the oil off of it, so I should get a good seal here. So I'm going to do is put in my 4 corner bolts first. Okay, now I'll go in and put in the rest of the I've got my inch-pounds torque wrench set for 96 inch-pounds. I'm going to start here in the middle. And again, I'm just going to go easy. I'm not cranking it till it clicks. I'm just cranking it down just a little at a time. I'm starting in the middle pan, working my way towards each end. Okay. And then I'll use my foot-pounds 3/8 drive. I've got it set on 18 foot-pounds. And so I'm going to run these down easy. I'm not taking it till it clicks. I'm just taking it down where it's a little snug. Got a little pressure on it. And that way that silicone is slowly squishing out in there and slowly spreading out, so it's not going to split that gasket. Okay, I'm going to go back, start in the middle again. Let's go a little bit more. Okay. And I'm just going to keep working back and forth like this. I'm in no hurry to get this thing jacked down, so I'm just going easy, little at a time, baby steps. And that way that gasket's having plenty of time to seat itself correctly and squeeze out any of that silicone and it'll help seal up a little bit better. Yeah, you can kind of see how it's squeezing out pretty even along there. Nice little bead. I didn't put too much in there. It's not like gushing out. And that's what we want. We want it just a little bit in there to help seal up any extra little gap there might be there. Any chance of that leaking. So I'm going to see if I can. Okay, that's getting to 96 foot-pounds, or 96 inch-pounds. 96 foot-pounds be like we're torquing lug nuts, huh? Okay, that should be it. I'm gonna let it sit for a few minutes and then I'm gonna go one more time around it just to make sure. But in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and take a rag and clean off my excess silicone there. I really didn't have too much extra coming out. I said I didn't put it on there very thick at all. Just enough to seal up any kind of little gap we might have there. I just don't want to have any issues with this thing leaking oil after I've gone to all this trouble. Okay, I'm gonna go around it one more time, just to make sure everything's torqued down good. It is turning just a little bit before it clicks, so I think this gasket does kind of settle just a little bit. I might even go around it one more time after I let it sit for a little bit longer. Okay, that should do it. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe this pan down because I touched it with my bare hands and kind of wipe these bolts off. I already wiped off the bottom part of this block with acetone, so it's ready to be masked off and painted. So I'm putting an electric fuel pump on the car, so I'm gonna put a block off plate here. I gotta do that yet. There we go. Now I can clean that up and clean up my pan, flip it over, clean the top, start masking it off, get ready to paint.